Elena Vasquez stood very still in the great hall of the Valkyrie Imperial Palace. She was not alone. Around her stood 20 other beings from different planets, all of them waiting to be presented to the royal family. They were called tributes, gifts, offerings from weaker worlds to the mighty. Valkyrie Empire. Elena hated that word. Tribute. It made her feel like a thing, instead of a person. The palace was beautiful in a strange and terrible way. The walls were made of something that looked like coral, but it glowed with soft blue and purple light. The ceiling was so high that Elena could not see where it ended. Everything seemed alive somehow. The floor pulsed gently under her feet like a slow heartbeat. The other tributes were nervous. Elena could see it in the way they moved, the way they kept their eyes on the ground. A small creature with green skin and too many arms was shaking so badly that it made a clicking sound. A tall being with feathers instead of hair was crying silently, its tears falling to the floor. Elena felt fear too, but she did not show it. She had trained for this moment for 3 years. Earth had chosen her for a reason. The Valkyrie were the most powerful species in this part of the galaxy. They had ruled for thousands of years. Their empire covered 300 star systems. When they asked for tributes, no one said no. Not even Earth. Humans had only been part of galactic society for 50 years. They were new. They were weak. They had no great warships, no powerful weapons, no ancient technology. When the Valkyrie demanded a human tribute, Earth had no choice but to send one. But Earth had been clever. They did not send a slave. They sent a diplomat. They sent Elena. The doors at the far end of the hall opened. Everyone went silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Prince Kethvorn walked in. Elena had seen pictures of the Valkyrie, but pictures did not prepare her for the real thing. The prince was 7 feet tall. His skin was black like polished stone, smooth and perfect. His eyes changed color as he moved, shifting from gold to purple to deep red. He wore a crown made of crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. He was beautiful. He was terrifying. Behind him came his advisors and guards. They all wore robes of silver and black. They moved like dancers, each step perfect and graceful. They looked at the tributes the way a person might look at new furniture. The prince walked slowly down the line of tributes. Each one fell to their knees as he passed. They pressed their foreheads to the floor. They did not dare to look at him. Elena watched. She studied. She waited. The prince stopped in front of the green creature with many arms. He said something in his own language. His voice was like music, but cold music, like wind through ice. The creature shook even harder and said something back in a voice too quiet to hear. The prince moved on. He stopped in front of the feathered being. It was still crying. The prince reached down and lifted its chin with one finger. He looked at its face for a long moment, then let go. The feathered being collapsed back to the floor, sobbing. Then the prince came to Elena. She did not kneel. The whispers started immediately. The other tributes looked at her with horror. The advisors behind the prince made sounds of shock and anger. Even the guards shifted their weight, hands moving toward their weapons. Elena stood straight. She looked directly at the prince's face. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might break through her chest. But she did not kneel. The prince stopped walking. He tilted his head to one side, studying her like a puzzle he could not solve. "This one does not kneel," he said. He was speaking the common galactic language now, the one that all species use to communicate. His accent made the words sound strange and beautiful. "No," Elena said. "I do not." More whispers. An advisor stepped forward. "Your Highness, this is an insult. The human must be punished." The prince raised one hand, and the advisor went silent. He was still looking at Elena. His eyes were dark purple now, and very interested. "Why do you not kneel, human?" he asked. "I am a diplomat," Elena said. Her voice was steady. She was proud of that. "I represent my planet. I am not a gift. I am not a tribute. I am an ambassador of Earth." The prince laughed. The sound was like breaking glass, sharp and bright. It echoed through the great hall. "The humans send me a defective gift," he said. "One that does not know its place." "I know my place very well," Elena replied. "I am standing in it." The advisor made a choking sound. Several guards took steps forward, but the prince waved them back. He was smiling now, a thin curve of his dark lips. "You have spirit," he said. "I like spirit. It makes things more interesting when the spirit is broken." He stepped closer to Elena. She could smell him now, something like flowers and metal. His eyes shifted to deep gold as he looked down at her. "You will learn to kneel," he said softly. "They all do, eventually." Elena did not answer. She did not look away. The prince raised his hand. His fingers were long and thin, with an extra joint that made them move in ways human fingers could not. He reached out toward her face. Elena knew what this was. The briefings had told her. Among the Velkari, touching someone's face was a claim. It meant ownership. It meant this person belongs to me now. She should have moved. She should have stepped back. But something told her to stay still. Some instinct deep in her bones said, "Wait. Let him touch you. Let him learn." The prince's fingers made contact with her cheek. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Prince Kethvorm began to scream. The sound that came from his mouth was not royal. It was not beautiful. It was raw and animal and filled with pain. He stumbled backward, clutching his hand to his chest. His perfect face was twisted in agony, but Elena had not moved. She stood exactly where she had been standing. She had done nothing at all. But where the prince had touched her skin, his fingers were starting to blister. The guards rushed forward. The advisors shouted in panic. The other tributes scrambled away, terrified. The great hall erupted into chaos. And Elena Vasquez stood in the middle of it all, completely untouched. Finally understanding why Earth had really sent her. She was not just a diplomat. She was a message. The prince would not stop screaming. Elena watched as the guards surrounded their master, as the advisors pushed through the crowd to reach him. Everyone was shouting in the Velkari language, their beautiful musical voices now sharp with fear and anger. Prince Kethvorn was on his knees. The most powerful prince in 300 star systems was kneeling on the floor of his own palace, tears streaming from his color-shifting eyes. His hand was raised in front of his face, and he was staring at it with pure horror. The skin where he had touched Elena was bubbling. Blisters were forming across his fingers and spreading up toward his wrist. Smoke rose from the wounds in thin gray wisps. Elena had never seen anything like it. She had not expected this. No one had told her this would happen. "Caesar!" An advisor screamed. "The human has poisoned the prince." Guards moved toward Elena. They pointed weapons at her. Strange devices that hummed with energy. But none of them touched her. They circled around her like wolves around a fire, afraid to get too close. "I did not poison anyone," Elena said. She kept her voice calm, even though her mind was racing. "He touched me. I did nothing." "Lies!" The advisor was shaking with rage. "You have killed our prince. You have murdered him with your alien poison." "He is not dead," Elena said. She looked at the prince, still screaming on the floor. "He is in pain. There's a difference." A new group rushed into the great hall. These wore white robes instead of silver and black. Doctors, Elena guessed. Healers. They pushed past the guards and surrounded the prince. One of them touched his injured hand and then pulled back quickly, studying the wounds. The healer spoke rapidly in the Valkyrie language. The words meant nothing to Elena, but the tone was clear. Confusion, fear. The tone. Healers did not understand what they were seeing. Neither did Elena. But she was beginning to guess. She thought about the briefing she had received before coming here. Earth had only been part of galactic society for 50 years. In that time, humans had met many alien species, and they had learned something interesting. Earth was strange. Most planets where life developed were calm places. Stable temperatures, gentle climates, easy living. Life on those planets grew slowly and peacefully over millions of years. Earth was different. Earth had ice ages and heat waves. Earth had volcanoes and earthquakes. Earth had predators everywhere. Life on Earth had to fight for every single day of existence. This had made humans different too. The healers were carrying the prince away now. He had stopped screaming, but his face was still twisted in agony. His hand was wrapped in something that looked like silver cloth. As he passed Elena, he looked at her. His eyes were solid black with pain. But there was something else in them too. Fear. The Valkyrie prince was afraid of her. When he was gone, the advisors turned their attention to Elena. There were 6 of them, all tall and thin and angry. They stood in a half-circle around her, keeping their distance. "You will explain what you have done," the lead advisor said. His voice was cold as ice. "You will tell us what poison you used, and then you will die for your crime." Elena shook her head slowly. "I use no poison. I carry no weapons. Your guards can scan me if you wish. They will find nothing. Then how do you explain what happened to the prince?" Elena thought carefully before speaking. She was a diplomat. Words were her weapons. She had to use them correctly. "I think," she said slowly, "that your species and mine have never touched before." The advisor frowned. "What does that mean?" "Humans have been sending messages to the Valkyrie for 50 years. We have traded goods and information, but we have always used intermediaries. Other species carried things between us. No Valkyrie has ever been in the same room as a human before today." The advisor's frown deepened. And your biology is different from ours. Very different." Elena held up her hand, looking at her own skin. "What is normal for me may be dangerous for you. What is safe in my body may be poison in yours. That is ridiculous. We have met thousands of species. None of them have harmed us with mere touch. None of them were from Earth." There was silence in the Great Hall. The other tributes had been taken away. Only Elena and the 6 advisors remained, along with a ring of guards who still would not come close to her. Elena took a deep breath. She was guessing now, putting together pieces of information she had learned over the years. She hoped she was right. "Earth is what the galaxy calls a death world," she said. "Our planet is dangerous. Extreme hot and extreme cold. Poisonous plants everywhere. Predators on land and in the water. To survive on Earth, life had to become tough. It had to develop defenses." She touched her own cheek, where the prince had touched her. "Humans sweat when we are nervous or hot. Our sweat contains chemicals, salts, acids, things that are normal for us, but may be very harmful for species from gentler worlds." She looked at the lead advisor. "When your prince touched my face, he touched my sweat. And whatever is in my sweat, it burns your people like fire." The advisor stared at her. His color-shifting eyes had gone pale gray. He looked sick. "You are saying that you are poison, that your very body is a weapon." Elena nodded slowly. "I am saying that we are different, and no one thought to check if our differences would be dangerous." One of the other advisors made a sound of horror. "The tributes," he whispered. "The human tributes we have taken before." Elena felt cold. "What about them?" "They died. All of them. within days of arriving here. We thought they were weak. We thought they could not survive away from their home world. The advisor's voice was shaking. But if what you say is true, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Elena understood now. The other humans who had been taken as tributes, they had not died of weakness. They had died because the Valkyrie had touched them, had tried to own them. And the Valkyrie themselves had suffered for it. But no one had connected the deaths. No one had realized the truth until now. I need to speak to your emperor, Elena said. Immediately, the lead advisor laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think the emperor will see you? After what you have done? I think the emperor needs to see me, Elena replied. Because I am not the only human in the galaxy. There are 8 billion more on Earth. And if you want to survive contact with my species, you need to listen to what I have to say. The advisors looked at each other. Their faces were troubled. Elena waited. She had time. She was the one with the power now. It felt strange to think that. She had come here expecting to be treated like property. Instead, she had become something else entirely. She had become dangerous. 3 days passed before Elena was allowed to speak to anyone important. She spent those days in a small room deep inside the palace. It was comfortable enough. There was a bed and food and water. But there were also guards outside her door at all times. Guards who were afraid to come inside. On the 4th day, the door opened and an advisor entered. Not the angry one from before, but a new one. This advisor was older, with streaks of gray in his black skin. His eyes stayed a calm blue the entire time he spoke. The High Council will see you now, he said. You will explain your species. You will tell them everything about human biology, and you will do so without touching anyone. Elena nodded. I understand. She followed the advisor through long hallways of glowing coral. Guards walked ahead of them and behind them, but always at least 10 feet away from Elena. Word had spread through the palace. Everyone knew what had happened to the prince. Everyone knew that the human was dangerous. The High Council met in a great round room at the heart of the palace. The ceiling was made of clear crystal, and Elena could see strange stars burning in the purple sky above. 12 Valkyries sat in a half circle on raised platforms. In the center, on the highest platform, sat a figure that made even the other Valkyrie look small. The Emperor. He was ancient. Elena could see it in the way he held himself, in the deep lines on his dark face. His eyes shifted through colors so quickly that they seemed to contain rainbows. He wore no crown. He did not need one. Everyone who looked at him knew exactly who he was. Elena stood before the council behind a wall of clear crystal, a barrier to protect the Valkyrie from her touch. She felt like an animal in a zoo. Human, the Emperor said. His voice was deep and slow, like distant thunder. You have harmed my grandson. You have caused chaos in my palace. Explain yourself. Elena bowed her head briefly. This was not kneeling. This was respect. There was a difference. Great Emperor, she said, I have harmed no one. Your grandson touched me without my permission. What happened to him was the result of his own action. Do not play word games with me. The Emperor's eyes flashed red. Tell me why your touch burns our flesh. Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for. She had spent 3 days in that small room, organizing her thoughts, planning her words. She was ready. Earth is my home world, she began. It is a planet near the edge of the galaxy. By the standards of most species, it is what you would call a death world. She saw the council members exchange glances. They knew this term. Life on Earth is hard, Elena continued. Our sun sends radiation that damages cells. Our atmosphere contains gases that are poisonous to many species. The temperature changes from extreme cold to extreme heat, depending on location and season. There are thousands of species on Earth that will kill and eat anything they can catch, including humans. The Emperor leaned forward slightly. Go on. To survive on such a world, life must be strong. It must be tough. It must be dangerous. Elena held up her hands. Humans look soft and weak. We have no claws, no sharp teeth, no armor. But we are not defenseless. We have something else. She touched her own skin. Our bodies are filled with chemicals. Acids and bases and compounds that help us survive. Our sweat contains salt that would kill plants on gentler worlds. Our blood carries substances that fight infections, kill parasites, and burn any foreign cells that enter our body. She looked directly at the Emperor. When your grandson touched my face, his skin came into contact with chemicals that are perfectly normal for me, but completely deadly for your species. He was not poisoned by a weapon. He was poisoned by my existence. Silence filled the great room. The council members were staring at Elena with expressions she could not read. Fear? Disgust? Fascination? One of the council members spoke. Can this be true? Surely you exaggerate. Elena shook her head. I can show you proof. Have your scientists analyze a sample of my sweat. Test my tears. Examine my blood. They will find dozens of compounds that would be classified as dangerous by any medical standard. She paused, then added something she had been saving. We also eat poison. The council erupted in noise. Voices spoke over each other in the Valkyrie language. The Emperor raised one hand, and silence returned instantly. Explain, he commanded. Humans enjoy food that contains chemicals called capsaicin, allicin, and others. These chemicals cause pain and damage to most living tissue, but we find them pleasant. We call it spicy food. We add these poisons to our meals because we like how they taste. Elena watched the horror spread across the council members' faces. It was almost funny, but she did not laugh. There is more, she said. Our planet has a plant called tobacco. When dried and burned, the smoke is poisonous. It causes disease and death even in humans. But millions of us breathe this smoke for pleasure. We call it smoking. You willingly poison yourselves? A council member asked weakly. Yes, we also drink ethanol, which is a toxic solvent. We call it alcohol. We consume it at celebrations and social gatherings. It damages our organs, affects our thinking, and can cause death in large amounts. But we enjoy it. Elena smiled slightly. Humans are not fragile. We are not weak. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we survived by becoming harder to kill than everything else. The galaxy has been looking at us and seeing small, soft creatures with no weapons. The galaxy has been wrong. The Emperor sat very still for a long moment. His ancient eyes studied Elena through the crystal barrier. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but everyone heard every word. The tributes we have taken from Earth, he said. The humans who came before you. They all died within days of arriving here. We believed they were too weak to survive outside their home world. He paused. Were we wrong? Elena felt a weight settle on her chest. This was the question she had been dreading. I believe you were wrong, she said. I believe those humans died because your people touched them, tried to own them, and your people suffered reactions, became ill, and blamed the humans for poisoning them. So the humans were killed. We did not kill them. Did they die peacefully then? In comfortable beds? With doctors trying to save them? The Emperor did not answer. His silence told Elena everything she needed to know. My people died here because of ignorance, Elena said. Her voice was harder now, because no one stopped to ask if direct contact between our species was safe. Because your empire was so sure of its own power that it never considered that we might be dangerous. She stepped closer to the crystal barrier. Every council member flinched back. But now you know, she said. Now you understand. And you have a choice to make. The Emperor's eyes shifted to solid gold. What choice is that? Elena smiled. It was not a friendly smile. The choice between treating humanity as friends or treating us as enemies. Because I promise you, Great Emperor, you do not want 8 billion of us as enemies. The council chamber was completely silent. Elena waited. The real negotiation was about to begin. 6 months passed before the Treaty of Velkar Prime was ready to be signed. 6 months of negotiations, arguments, compromises, and very careful diplomacy. Elena had been at the center of all of it, working 18 hours a day to build a future that had never existed before. The signing ceremony took place in the same great hall where Elena had first been presented as a tribute. But everything was different now. The crystal walls had been hung with banners from 300 worlds. Representatives from every species in the empire filled the seats. And at the front of the hall, a long table held the documents that would change everything. Elena walked to the table wearing a simple gray suit. No fancy robes, no alien jewelry. Just the plain clothes of a woman from Earth. She had insisted on that. She was not trying to become like the Valkyrie. She was trying to stay human. The Emperor sat at the head of the table. He had aged in the past 6 months, Elena thought. The weight of change was heavy, even for an ancient being like him. But his eyes were still sharp, still watching everything. Prince Kethvorn sat to his right. His hand was unwrapped now, healed as much as it would ever heal. The scars were visible even from across the hall. White lines on black skin, like cracks in polished stone. He caught Elena looking at them and flexed his fingers deliberately. A reminder. A message. I have not forgotten. Elena nodded slightly in acknowledgement and took her seat at the table. The treaty was long and complicated, but its core was simple. The tribute system was abolished forever. No species would be required to send living beings as gifts to another. All current tributes would be returned to their homes with compensation. And humanity would be recognized as a full partner in the galactic community, with all the rights and protections that came with that status. There were other provisions too. Scientific cooperation, trade agreements, military alliances. The treaty created a new relationship between humans and the Volcari that was built on respect rather than domination. Elena signed her name at the bottom of the final page. The Emperor signed after her. Then, representatives from 200 other species added their marks, one after another, until the document was covered with symbols from across the galaxy. When the last signature was complete, the hall erupted in celebration. Beings from dozens of worlds embraced each other, cried together, laughed together. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were finally free. The universe had changed. Elena slipped away from the celebration. She needed air. She needed quiet. She needed a moment to understand what she had done. She found a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The alien plants glowed softly in the purple twilight. Strange creatures moved through the branches, making sounds that were almost like music. It was beautiful in a way that Elena would never have imagined possible. She heard footsteps behind her. Careful footsteps that stopped 3 meters away. Ambassador Vasquez. Elena turned. Prince Kethvorn stood in the doorway, his scarred hand visible at his side. Prince Kethvorn, she replied. Should you be out here? Away from the celebration? I could ask the same of you. He stepped forward slightly, but kept his distance. You have won a great victory today. You should be enjoying it. Elena shook her head. I did not come here for victory. I came here because my planet had no choice. I stayed because I saw something worth fighting for. The prince was silent for a moment. Then he raised his scarred hand and looked at it. "I have thought about what happened many times," he said. "When I touched your face. When I fell to the floor screaming like an animal." His eyes shifted to deep blue. "I have never felt pain like that. I have never felt so helpless." Elena did not apologize. She had nothing to apologize for. "Among my people," the prince continued, "scars are marks of shame. They show that we were weak, that we failed." He flexed his damaged fingers. "I will carry these scars for the rest of my life. Every time I look at my hand, I will remember what happened." "And what do you remember?" Elena asked. The prince was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, honest. "I remember that I thought I could take whatever I wanted. I remember that I thought the universe was mine by right. I remember reaching out to claim something that did not belong to me." He met her eyes. "And I remember being taught that I was wrong." Elena nodded slowly. "Among my people, scars are marks of survival. They show that we face something hard and live through it. We do not hide our scars. We learn from them. What lesson should I learn from this?" Elena turned to look out over the gardens. The alien stars were coming out now, filling the purple sky with light. "That power is not the same as strength," she said. "That owning something is not the same as deserving it. That the small, soft creatures from the edge of the galaxy might not be small or soft at all." She looked back at him. "And that it is always better to ask permission than to assume it is given." The prince stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "You are a strange species," he said. "We are," Elena agreed. "But you will get used to us." She turned and walked back toward the celebration, leaving the prince alone on the balcony with his scars and his thoughts. She had said what needed to be said. The rest was up to him. Inside the great hall, the celebration continued. Beings from across the galaxy danced and sang and celebrated their new freedom. Elena moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and thanks from species she had never seen before. She smiled and nodded and said the right things. But inside, she was thinking about the future. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy. They had shown that they were not weak, not fragile, not easy prey. They had stood up to the greatest empire in known space and won, not through violence, but through truth. Through the simple power of being exactly what they were. Dangerous, unpredictable, and absolutely unwilling to kneel. Earth would hear about this treaty soon. The news was already traveling across space, carried by faster-than-light communication systems to every human colony in the galaxy. People would celebrate. They would cheer. They would feel proud of their species for perhaps the first time since they learned they were not alone in the universe. But Elena knew that this was only the beginning. The treaty was signed, but the work of building a new relationship would take decades. There would be misunderstandings and conflicts and moments when everything seemed about to fall apart. Humans and Velkari would have to learn to live together without touching, without assuming, without making the mistakes of the past. It would be hard. It might be impossible. But Elena believed it was worth trying. She found a quiet corner of the hall and sat down. Her legs were tired. Her mind was tired. 6 months of work had led to this moment, and now she did not know what to do with herself. A being approached her. Small green with too many arms. Elena recognized it. The trembling creature from her first day in the tribute hall. It was not trembling now. "Thank you," it said in a high, thin voice. "For what you have done. For all of us." Elena smiled. "I just did what needed to be done." "No." The little being shook its head firmly. "You did what no one else could do. You stood up when everyone else kneeled. You spoke when everyone else was silent." It reached out one tiny arm, then stopped, remembering. "You are special, human. Your species is special. Do not forget that." The little being walked away, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. Special. Elena did not feel special. She felt tired and scared and very far from home. She felt like a woman who had somehow stumbled into history and was now trying not to mess it up. But maybe that was enough. Maybe being human was enough. Maybe the small, soft, stubborn creatures from the death world at the edge of the galaxy were exactly what the universe needed. Elena stood up. She straightened her simple gray suit, and she walked back into the celebration to do what humans had always done. Survive, adapt, and make the universe take notice. The galaxy watched. The galaxy remembered, and humanity had only just begun. The diplomatic summit began 1 week after Elena's speech to the High Council. Representatives from 30 different species gathered in the largest hall of the Valkyrie Imperial Palace. They came from planets across the Empire, from species that had been sending tributes for hundreds of years. Elena sat at a special table set apart from all others. A circle of empty floor surrounded her. No one would come within 15 feet of where she sat. She had become famous in the past week. The human who had burned a prince with her touch. The woman from the death world. Some looked at her with fear. Some with hatred. But some, Elena noticed, looked at her with something else. Hope. Prince Kethvorn entered the hall with his guards. His hand was wrapped in silver bandages that glowed with healing energy. The doctor said he would recover fully, but the scars would remain forever. His beautiful dark skin would carry white marks where Elena's sweat had burned him. He walked to his seat near the Emperor's throne. As he passed Elena's table, their eyes met. She saw anger in his shifting colors. She saw wounded pride. But underneath all of that, she saw something that surprised her. Respect. He had underestimated her. He would not make that mistake again. The Emperor rose from his throne. The hall fell silent. "We are gathered here to discuss the future relationship between the Valkyrie Empire and the species called humanity," the Emperor announced. His voice carried to every corner of the room without effort. "Recent events have shown us that our understanding of humans was incorrect. We must now correct that understanding." He gestured toward Elena. "The human ambassador will speak." Elena stood. She had prepared for this moment for days. Everything depended on what she said next. "Thank you, Great Emperor," she said. "I speak not just for myself, but for the 8 billion humans on Earth and the millions more living on colonies throughout our corner of the galaxy." She paused and looked around the room at all the different species gathered there. She saw tentacles and feathers and scales and forms she had no words for. All of them were watching her. All of them were afraid. First, let me be clear about something. Humans do not want war with the Valkyrie Empire. We have no interest in conquering your worlds or destroying your civilization. We are not a violent species by nature. She heard someone laugh softly. She ignored it. "But we are a survival species," she continued. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived predators and diseases and natural disasters. We survived ice ages and heat waves. We survived each other, which was often the hardest challenge of all." Elena touched her own arm. "Our bodies are weapons because they had to be. Our blood contains chemicals that fight infection. Our skin produces compounds that repel parasites. Our tears contain enzymes that kill bacteria. This is not something we chose. It is what we are." She looked at the Emperor. "Your empire has been demanding tribute from our planet for 10 years. You have taken humans and brought them here, thinking they would serve you as all other tributes serve. But they died. Every single one of them died. And now we know why." The hall was silent. No one moved. "They died because you touched them," Elena said. "You thought you owned them. You thought you could claim them like property. And when your bodies reacted badly to their touch, you blamed them. You killed them without ever understanding that you were the cause of your own suffering. She saw guilt on some faces, shame on others, and on a few, she saw nothing but cold anger. "This ends today," Elena said. Her voice was sharp as a blade. "The tribute system ends today. Not just for humans, but for everyone." The hall erupted in noise. Council members shouted in protest. Representatives from other species looked at each other in confusion. Guards moved toward Elena, then stopped when they remembered they could not touch her. The Emperor raised his hand. Silence returned slowly. "You demand much, human," the Emperor said. "The tribute system has existed for 2,000 years. It is the foundation of our empire." "It is slavery," Elena replied. "You take living beings from their homes and force them to serve you. You call them gifts, but they have no choice in the matter. This is wrong by any standard. And if we refuse to change?" Elena smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Then we share information with your enemies." The Emperor's eyes went dark red. "What information?" "Information about human biology, about the chemicals in our bodies, about the ways we can be used as weapons." Elena spread her hands. "Right now, 17 species are at war with your empire. How long do you think that war would last if those species learned how to weaponize humans?" The hall was completely silent. Even breathing seemed to have stopped. "We would be killing ourselves," someone said. Elena shook her head. "No, we would be choosing who we die for. Right now, you treat us like property. You take our people and kill them through ignorance. Why should we give our lives for an empire that does not even respect our existence?" The prince spoke for the first time. His voice was rough with pain and anger. "You would sacrifice your own people out of spite?" "I would let my people choose their own fate," Elena replied. "That is all any of us want. The right to choose." She turned back to the Emperor. "End the tribute system. Treat all species as equals. And in return, humanity will be your ally. We will share our knowledge freely. We will help you understand our biology, so that accidents like what happened to the prince never occur." Again, she paused and added something she had been planning since the beginning. "We will also share the secrets of Earth's vital chemicals, the compounds in our bodies that kill infections and fight diseases. Your scientists could study these compounds. They could develop new medicines, new treatments. The benefits would be enormous." The Emperor sat very still. His ancient face showed no emotion, but Elena could see him thinking. "You offer us a partnership," he said slowly. "I offer you a future," Elena replied. "Your empire has grown strong by taking from others. But that approach has limits. Eventually, you will take from someone who can hurt you. Someone like us." She gestured around the hall. "Look at these species. Look at all the tributes you have claimed over the centuries. They fear you. They hate you. They serve you only because they have no choice. Is that really the empire you want to rule? One built on fear and resentment?" No one answered. But Elena could see her words landing. She could see minds beginning to change. "Humanity offers you something different," she said. "We offer you equals, partners, not because we fear your power, but because we respect what you could become." She looked directly at the Emperor. "The choice is yours, great Emperor. What kind of empire do you want to lead?" The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stood from his throne. Every eye in the hall watched him. "You speak of choices," he said, "but you have given me very few. You threaten my empire with weapons I cannot fight. You offer peace only if I surrender traditions that have stood for millennia." His eyes shifted through colors too quickly to follow. "This is not negotiation. This is force." Elena nodded. Yes, it is. Because sometimes force is the only language power understands. The Emperor stared at her. Then, incredibly, he laughed. I have ruled for 600 years, he said. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched empires crumble to dust. And in all that time, no one has ever spoken to me the way you just did. He turned to address the entire hall. The tribute system is suspended effective immediately. All current tributes will be returned to their home worlds. A new treaty will be negotiated with humanity and all other affected species. The hall exploded in chaos. Some voices cheered. Others shouted in anger. But it did not matter. The Emperor had spoken. Elena sat down slowly. Her legs were shaking. She had just changed the future of 300 star systems. She was terrified. She was proud. And she was just getting started.